All right, welcome you guys. Happy Friday. Tiffany here, and I have my friend Deb here as well. We are coming to you guys because we have an amazing testimony that we want to share with you today. So, my question that I want to ask you before we begin is, are marriages hard? Right? Our marriage is hard. Marriages are hard, right? Like we go into marriages really like, all happy and excited and giddy, and we like love this person, which is amazing. But, and I'm going to say the statistic, and it's kind of scary, but 50% of marriages end in divorce. And that is like heartbreaking to me. And it's truly because opposites will attract, right? It's exciting to like know somebody of, a different personality than us. But then what happens once you continue into that marriage and that relationship is then opposites can attack too, right? So today I want to introduce you to my friend Deb, who we've actually never met in person, but just virtually a few years ago. And about a year ago, she actually took my 90-second personality assessment. And through taking this, we actually did realize that her and her husband, Don, are opposites. And so she's going to share with us today how just really learning about who she is, about who her husband is through this assessment and what their personalities are and how this has made a difference in their communication and in their relationship. Because Deb, her personality through our assessment, she is a nurture, action, knowledge, blueprint. And her husband, Don, is a blueprint, knowledge, nurture, action. So you can see the difference between them, right? Like Don was probably attracted to you, Deb, because because he was like, oh, she's fun. She's a people person. She loves to go out there and do things, right? Like we never know what's happening next. Like she's so adventurous. And, he was attracted to that about you. And you were probably attracted to him because he was, just very organized and put together and just really knowledgeable and just,
Yep.
someone completely different than who you were. He kind of brought you down, and stabilized you a little bit, maybe. So Deb, share with us, you took that assessment, you realized, who you guys were. Like tell us a little bit about your marriage even before you took that assessment and what this assessment has opened up for you guys.
Wow, Tiffany, I would have thought that you knew me back in 1971. That's when I married my sweetheart. So what you described is exactly true. Those were our characteristics. And I say were because over the years, we all change. Life has its knocks, life has its blessings. And that molds us into the person that we are today. I know that now, didn't always know that, but I do know it now. But when I met Don, he was kind and sweet and knowledgeable. He was very organized. I knew that whatever we needed, plans we wanted to make, I needed to listen to him because he was right. I often thought I was right, but honestly, he was right. He knew the details. I didn't. I just would act on it. And so I admired his strengths. And I think he did admire my strengths. It is something over the years that we talked about was, I always wanted to be organized and I'm not. Well, I've become organized more over the years, but it's something I've had to work at. Definitely not a natural thing for me. But one of the most important things for Don is he is very punctual. That is probably one of the most important values to him. Not only is your word, but if you aren't 10 minutes early, you're late.
Yep.
And 10 minutes early meant I was still trying to do one more thing, which would add to frustrations between us and words. And we both had to learn a better way to work with each other. And so that's just one of the many attributes that we each have for each other. But truly, we were opposites. Truly, we were attracted to what each other had and have learned to meld together for that. It hasn't been an easy thing. It has been a struggle, but it's been very much of a blessing also. And over the years, We have been blessed with 2 kids. They each are married. We have wonderful spouses, and most excitingly, I've got 4 grandkids, and that really is our reward for not killing our kids on those tough days. I truly believe that, because we all have those tough days, but we also have those tough days with each other. And that's been one of the hardest things. As my kids were teenagers, during that time, Don and I, who had always been close, became further apart. And he was busy with one kid, I was busy with the other. You were chaperoning, you were doing community meetings, you were doing all this different stuff, and we were kind of losing track of each other. And we happened to get involved with a business, not the business I'm currently doing, but we got involved with a business that did a lot of self-training, offered a lot of opportunities in self-training. And that's when we realized, wow, we're missing that link and we need to work together for things. And that was probably the most important lesson of all, was learning to work together, taking his strengths and my strengths, and swallowing your pride on the times that you were sure you were right and you really weren't. Learning to just say, that's okay. And so that helped us become, again, best friends. But like I say, there were a lot of times we weren't best friends. Today, he is truly my most precious gem and my friend. And not just because we've been married 52 years, but because we've learned how to take each other's weaknesses and work it through. Today, so many people just get upset with that and walk away from it. But truly, we both recognize the value of what we have. And so we do work for it. But after the pandemic, no, truly during the pandemic, it was such a tough time for the whole world. Well, it's especially tough when you're 24/7 with your husband. I was newly retired. He is a business owner and so was still working out of his shop. But me being around 24/7 was a big change because I wasn't around that much. And now we're together, which should be a good thing. But all of a sudden, it's like, he's in my way, I'm in his way. I want the TV off, he wants the TV on. These little things would get very irritating. And all of a sudden you were attacking each other, is probably the best word, not meaning to, not even aware that you were. But instead of valuing each other, you were being crabby with each other. And we were both aware of it, but didn't know what to do about it. And then I happened to get linked with Tiffany for an online event. And from there, Tiffany has continued to nurture. Even though I'm a nurturer, I needed nurturing. And I needed somebody to help guide me through the things that I was doing wrong and could make better. And learning that it's not his fault when things aren't right, it's my fault. And what am I going to do about it? This is what it is. And it's up to me to figure out how we get through it versus being upset. And I can't stress enough, don't go to bed angry. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. Work it out, talk about it, say, I agree to disagree for tonight, but we'll talk about it another time. But don't go to bed ever angry with each other. But back to the pandemic and where it all led me. My business, I wasn't doing anything with during the pandemic. I didn't feel that it was the right thing to do. And I was very wrong. People needed my business and they needed me. And I needed them. And so with getting into bank with Tiffany, it helped me realize, wow, life is not just a big party. There is so much more that we can do. And even as a 70-year-old, I can still make a difference. I can still touch lives, but I can't do it just by being me, selfishly, just being me and getting through life the way I want to get through it. And so it helped me to realize that one of the biggest challenges between Don and I was that I heard whatever he said, I would hear it as an order. He would say, bring that over here, take that there, go do this. And I'd look at him like, seriously, I left my boss. I retired. I don't need to hear you boss me. And when I tried to talk to him about it, what he took from the conversation was he wasn't being polite. He wasn't taking the right, he wasn't using the word please. So we went through a time where he would say, bring that to me. please. And then it'd be like, I just want you to ask, not tell me.
Yeah.
And I would just get so hung up on that. But anyways, that was one of the lessons that I learned early with the bank is he is not giving me orders. He is not hollering. He is not bossing. He's simply saying, I need you to do this. He's
Mhm.
just not asking it as a question.
He was asking
He's
it in his blueprint way. That's the way that they
exactly. And that
know.
was, yep. And so as soon as we started talking about blueprint, I could go, the light bulb went on and I could go, oh. And so what I started doing was instead of getting upset, when I would hear that order that really wasn't meant as an order, I would just kind of do this look, you know, and then we would both, just with that look, he would be able to say, please bring that over here. He'd realize, oh, that sounded like an order. But now I know it's not an order. I can't get upset over that. So that's just one of many. There's times that I'm with friends and just having a good time, and maybe you're not in the appropriate place to be having such a good time. He can give me a look and I could be like, yeah, just cool it down.
And that's
So
your
we've
action,
done a
right?
lot
Your
of,
action wants to just pop out all the
absolute,
time.
yeah, just, yeah.
So I hear you
And
guys, what I hear, I want to share this. What I hear that you guys have really identified and understood what your personalities are him being, you know, that high blueprint, you being an action person, and just it's not like we know that of ourselves, but we've maybe never categorized it, right? So it's
right,
like it's this kind of unknown of this is how you act, but it, you know, it's not like a personality thing, like that's just innate in you and who you are. But I love that you guys are able to know what each other's personalities are, and you're kind of, you know, pointing it out like, hey, you're being too blueprint right now, but or you're being too action right now, right? So we
yep,
love the saying of it's not personal, but it's personality, right? It's like
right.
that's just who they are. So don't take it personal if he's telling you what to do, because blueprints just like things in order and to get things done.
And they do. Yeah, absolutely. 100% they do. So, but the other thing is he's been listening to a lot of these Zoom calls that I do, a lot of the trainings, even though he's in the next room, he really does hear a lot of it. So he has picked up a lot of this, and he helps me to be a better person now also, because we can openly talk about things that before you would just get frustrated with, but you didn't necessarily share it. You didn't share why you were frustrated. You just were. And today I want to know if you're frustrated with me. I want to know why you're frustrated. And let's figure out what we can do different so we don't have that frustration. You
He
know,
probably doesn't want to, as a blueprint knowledge person, he probably doesn't want to talk about that touchy feely type stuff as much, where you
right.
kind of needed that. But him now seeing that, has he opened up a little bit more, like you said, to be able to have
Absolutely.
the conversation
Yep.
because he knows what
Yep.
you need. Hmm.
And we both have learned the words of, okay, you're right. The conversation's done.
Yes.
You know, that just means I don't necessarily agree with you, but I respect your opinion. But yes, you're right. And end of conversation, or okay, you know, those types of things we can now say to each other, and just, you don't have to go any further. You just know I don't necessarily agree with that, but I respect your opinion or your
Otherwise,
thought, or
you just keep going at it,
yep,
because a knowledge person, someone who is high in knowledge, you know, they're typically very smart people, and they think that they know everything, like literally, right? And they never want to be wrong. So even if they are wrong, they're going to try and make it right, right? So it's
yes,
hard to, you know, you can't fight with a knowledge person, you know. So like you said, just
correct.
having the words of, okay, we kind of agree to disagree, but you know, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, yeah, right. So, but yeah, I greatly admire him. I love him dearly. I'm so glad that he's my best friend again. But I can't stress enough that we all have heartaches. We have mountains in life that we've got to get up, and valleys that, you know, we get to go down. But you've got to hang in there together. You've got to work through it, and you got to communicate. When you're not communicating, that's when you attack each other the most. You
Mhm.
got to communicate. Hey, Don, can you come here?
Yay, we get to
I'd
see
like to
him.
I'd like to share my Don with everyone.
Yes,
He's gonna not be real happy I'm doing this, but
I know.
I just
They don't like to
Don,
front center attention.
he wasn't even in the kitchen. Hey Don, I heard the door. Can you come here a minute, please? Can you come here, please? I just want to share you with my group. Will you come here? They want to. They
She
want
wants
to
to share
see
how
this
amazing you are.
guy.
There he is, the man of the
He
hour.
is.
Don, I feel
He
like I know
is.
you already, all the amazing things that Deb always shares about you. And I see just the love in her eyes and in her face about you. I love hearing about your guys' trips. And yeah, so grateful that I've connected with Deb. I actually never met her in person yet. We just have a
Oh,
virtual friendship
we
and
feel like we
feel
know
like I
each
know
other,
you.
but yeah, we do. We feel like we know each other. Yeah. I think Don even feels like he knows you.
Love it.
So, okay.
Don.
Thanks, Don. So, yeah, I just wanted to share him with the world.
Yes, that's amazing. So I got one follow-up question for you because so we're actually going to be doing a free 3-day workshop here in our Unlock Your Potential group. And it's going to all be about communication of parent and child, right? Because that, you're talking about spouse, which, you need that in order to really have a good household and parent your kids. So if you could give, like, is there understanding now, just looking back, the way that you guys did parent them, because you actually gave me goosebumps when you were talking about, as your kids got into the teenage years and you guys are pulled in different directions. I was like, that's kind of where I'm at right now. We've got
Right.
4 boys and we're pulled all over the place. It's like, we don't have, like our time, anymore. And so, but parenting is hard. So my personality is like you, Deb. I'm a nurturer, but I'm also a knowledge person. But my husband is a BK like Dawn. And so we parent completely different. I'm more of, I don't know if this is the word I want to use because I don't like being described like this, but my husband would, that I'm more of the pushover of like, I'll let my kids, do, have a little bit more grace and things. I won't yell at them as much, like they know, like they might not get in trouble as much with mom, right? Whereas with my husband, who's a BK, like, man, if you're not doing the things you need to do, you're going to hear about it, right? But it's not that he doesn't love them. It's not that he's yelling at them, but it's as a blueprint, you got to do the things that you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it, right? So looking back at your parenting and now knowing your guys' personalities, can you just give any insight around, how you did parent and realizing like, oh, wow, yeah, as an NA, I parented this way. As a BK, he parented this way.
Well, I'd have to say I parented a lot like I was parented. And I agree with what you're saying, but also I was the stronger, I was the most often parenting. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is for the everyday kinds of stuff and the bickering and this kind of stuff. I was the one that stepped in, took care of that, worked through it. Okay. When they really were, if they were ever disrespectful, which they were, but whenever they were disrespectful, whenever they had done something big, that was when Don spoke.
Yeah.
And he did not have to raise his voice. It was like they wanted to please him, and to think that dad was disappointed with you, that alone was a punishment. But Don and I parented together. So he wasn't always here when the things were going on, but we always in front of the kids agreed.
Yeah.
And we may say, can I talk to you in the other room? And then we could come back to the situation with a different plan. But we never had good cop, bad cop.
Yeah.
We never had that. We did a lot of eye exchange, stuff like that to make sure we're both on the same page. Or maybe I tended to be pretty harsh with my kids, though. They'll describe that I had tons of rules. And when I became a grandma to twins, my son said to me, I don't understand this, Mom. And I'm like, what? And he goes, you had so many rules for us when we were kids, and you take my kids and you have no rules. Cause like they couldn't have sugar, they couldn't have snacks between meals. I mean, it was just like high BK. And anyways, we would take kids, and of course I would sugar them up, you know. But anyways, I said to him, Chet, I do have a rule. I have one rule. My only rule as a grandparent is safety. If it's not a safety issue, it's not an issue. I get to be the grandmama now, not the mom. And that was, yeah, it's still me. So I'm more of a pushover as a grandma. I was not really a pushover as a mom, but if either of us backed down, it was probably me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
So
love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate your story and being here with all of us, and just, it's really eye-opening, you know, even though we know our spouse and we know our kids, but what I always say is we don't really sit around the kitchen table and say, you know, tell me what your values are, what's important
right.
to you, right? Like you don't get that level deep. And so, you know, you just really don't know truly like what is important to you, and how do you function, and why do you act the way that you do. So really just this 90-second assessment is just such an eye opener to see what type of person somebody is, and can truly help, you know, enhance your communication and your relationship. So thank you for taking the time and sharing today.
You're welcome. Could I share one more thing, which really is more appropriate with the kids one,
Yeah.
but it's going through my brain at the moment because it's so recent. But and it goes with parenting. But when my son was in probably 7th or 8th grade, he was going through the stage of being critical of other people. And he'd come home and this kid drove him crazy and that kid did something wrong, and, you know, this and that. And we worked really hard then on, well, what is it about Randy that is so special? He is your friend. What's so special for that? And so then he'd have to tell me something. Well, it got to be a rule then with the kids that I would listen to their negative, but now you have to tell me one positive thing about that. And the one day with his teacher, he was upset. And I listened, and then I kept saying, but you have to tell me one thing positive. And he's like, there's nothing positive. And I'm like, yes, there is. You have to tell me one thing positive. And he thought for the longest time and he didn't speak. And he said to me, Mom, she has nice buttons on her sweater. I said, okay, that's good. The other day when I was talking to him, now he's 49 years old.
Yeah.
I was talking to him and he was telling me about his day. He had a very challenging day. And I listened, and then all of a sudden he goes, but Mom, you know what? He had really nice buttons. And I'm like, it's still
Oh,
there. Be upset,
yes.
but come back with something. So like I said, it's not for today's call, but it's just fresh in my head and I wanted to share it.
But
That
I love
stays with
that,
the kids.
because what we do, this is what's really powerful, is what we do and what we say, even if it's the smallest things when our kids are growing up, that is locking in right there. And that is
Yeah.
what they carry forward into adulthood. So, you know, the things they hear us say, that the way they see us communicate with our spouse, right? That's getting locked into their brain. And even if you're like, you know, it's not a big deal if they hear this or they see this, you know, they'll forget about it. They're not, like, that's when their
No.
brain is sponging all that stuff. So we are actually, you know, transforming who our kids are going to be as an adults by the way that we parent them, right?
Mhm.
So really understanding and having that good relationship and communication is important when they're kids. So that's just a great example of that. So that just one
I
little
just want to share. Thank you.
yes, yes. Thank you for being here, and thank you everybody for watching. Feel free to drop any, you know, questions in the comments as well. And, you know, if there's something that Deb needs to answer back, I'll make sure that she is able to do that. So we appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Tiffany.